How to get children to learn anything faster using cognitive cadences. Do you want to give your child the winning edge? How would it feel if your child learned faster, easier, and with more joy? Pretty good, right? So in this video, we'll cover 2 neuroscience-backed techniques to make that happen. The first is the cognitive cadence technique, which will help your child outsmart, outlearn, and outperform. But you want them to enjoy too, right? Nobody wants tiger parents. That is why I also show you the Goldilocks zone technique, which gets them into the mood to learn, making it fun and getting the brain into a maximum state of neuroplasticity. Use these strategies together to boost your child's learning rate, increase retention, and save hours per day. Did you know 95% of students with actively involved parents exhibit better mental and physical well-being? These children experience reduced stress, improved concentration, enhanced memory, and improved cognitive abilities. And of course, this all leads to increased academic excellence. These children will be far more likely to lead successful, happy lives. But smart parents today can give their kids an even bigger advantage. This is because of all the great neuroscience that has come out but has yet to hit the mainstream. They are available in the research literature, but nobody has put them into an easy format parents can use. Well, not until this video anyway. Stop wasting countless hours because of old, outdated, suboptimal learning strategies. Watch this video and let those struggles be a thing of the past. This video explains the optimal learning state and how to get into it quickly. We'll cover the cognitive cadence technique and how to implement it. And in the end, we'll give you 2 simple brain booster techniques to take learning speed to a new level. And we are going to learn all of that starting right now. To understand the optimal learning states, I want you first to imagine the life of early humans. This will make it easy to understand why we have different brain states. Some are good for learning, some are not. For early humans, their world was dangerous at times, like when they were hunting large prey, during predator attacks, or even attacks from other tribes. In these moments, humans needed quick, instinctive reflexes. Whether fleeing from a predator, fighting a foe, or seeking shelter to survive a storm, they needed to rely on fast and efficient instincts. But where did these instincts come from? Humans do not come hardwired like the other animals. We have to build our brains ourselves. In prehistoric times, instincts and skills were taught by other humans, mainly during the safer parts of the day. When in a safe environment, early humans engaged in learning. Those who had survived the danger taught the others how they had done so. Survival strategies were passed on during this relaxed time. They communicated tool-making techniques, hunting methods, fighting methods, or knowledge of medicinal plants. They did this through play, dance, storytelling, and demonstration. During this time, their brain was in a learning state. Their brains had to switch back and forth between reactive mode and learning mode many times per day, and they had to switch quickly. This ability is what ensured their survival and progress. Thinking about this another way, the human brain is slow when processing new information and requires enormous resources. This is its learning mode. In reaction mode, it is incredibly fast and sends those resources to other body parts. The slower thinking and processing centers of the brain are shut down. They must be because they take too many resources and slow the body down. A human who could not do this would die. This is all done by a switch in the brain called the amygdala. There are more than 2 main brain states, but we'll cover the critical states for learning, which means there is one more important brain state to know about. We'll cover that one in a moment. This ability to switch between many brain states is largely unique to humans. And it has been the secret to how such comparatively weak creatures as we have survived. Our large brains can switch modes, but they can also build themselves into better brains as they adapt to the world. Our brains build themselves. Yet, despite these brain states being at the core of learning for 300,000 years, modern teaching methods have forgotten this. Let's bring it back. So, how do we do that? By understanding these 3 mental states and using strategies to get ourselves or our children into one state they can learn in. Let's cover them. It's important to know that our emotions regulate each of these states. We can tell which state we are in by our emotions. First, let's talk about the state of low arousal. This is not a learning state, but we must watch for it because it gives clues. This brain state can show us apathy, laziness, tiredness, or disengagement. We must remember that this can be a useful state or a sign of trouble. On the positive side, this is a mental and physical rest period, allowing the brain to recover from periods of high activity or stress. It can also be a time for subconscious processing, where the brain assimilates and organizes information without the distraction of active learning or engagement. In moderation, this low arousal state can contribute to overall mental balance, prevent burnout, and support creative thinking, as the mind is not focused on specific tasks. It's a dopamine reset. In a healthy brain, this is the idea of switching off, checking out, a bit of downtime, a brain break, some chill or decompression. However, if excessive, it's an indication of a problem. It might be a sign that the brain has been constantly excited by social media or video games and can no longer get excited by learning. This happens because these are easy sources of dopamine. Too much cheap dopamine, and the brain won't seek it out by learning new things. It is getting its dopamine fix elsewhere. That quick fix is right there on the phone, so why try harder? Brains are lazy if you train them to be. The other common reason for this apathetic state is that your child is constantly stressed due to a learning struggle. This stress can appear as laziness, but it is not. It's a brain that is constantly in fight or flight, so it cannot learn. It just shuts down. Long-term fight or flight eventually turns into freeze mode, which looks like laziness. The clue to whether this is a healthy state or not is in the duration. A few hours here and there is natural and healthy, but more than that is a concern. If you're seeing that, check out our video on types of learning disabilities right here. Now, next, let's talk about the second brain state. This is the opposite, a state of high arousal. A child in this state can be unusually emotional. They may exhibit signs of anxiety, restlessness, or irritability. This impedes their ability to learn effectively. They might struggle to concentrate or get distracted. They may be fidgety or have headaches or stomach aches. They may seem overwhelmed. This is the fight or flight response. They are experiencing stress hormones like cortisol. The crucial areas of the brain are shut off and they cannot learn. The areas for learning, memory, and rational thought are offline. This is obviously not a learning state. Trying to learn in this state increases stress and worsens things. Yet, people try it all the time. If a child is in this state, it's best to stop and figure out why. Is there bullying? Did something happen at school? Or maybe there's a hidden learning struggle nobody has noticed. Watch for the clues of this brain state. So with all that out of the way, let's talk about the optimum learning state and how to get into it. We call this the Goldilocks state because it is in between the low arousal and the high arousal states. Not too hot, not too cold. A little bit of cortisol to increase attention, but not so much as to cause too much stress. We need to have just a little bit to wake the brain up and tell it it's learning time. We also need a little positive emotion mixed in, some serotonin to regulate mood, and some dopamine to inspire the brain in the small challenges of learning. This need for dopamine is why too much social media and video games have a big effect. They're designed to get our brain to release dopamine. If we are getting it there, then the brain has no need to get it from learning new things. That's why we call it cheap dopamine. It takes no effort, and this cheap dopamine that we are all subject to, in today's world at least, subverts learning. Be careful with it. Back to Goldilocks. The Goldilocks learning state is like Goldilocks enjoying her favorite porridge with a bit of honey and spice mixed in for flavor. The cortisol is the heat, the serotonin is the sweetness, and the dopamine, the spice, all in perfect balance to make learning easy, enjoyable, and fun. This is not only the optimum learning state, but also the state of neuroplasticity, when our brains change and grow. It is a state of attention, curiosity, and engagement. Information is absorbed and retained easily. Attention span is longer and focus is easy. Creative problem solving is fun. Dopamine and serotonin are being released, and that causes new neural connections called neuroplasticity and new neural growth called neurogenesis. In the Goldilocks state, our brains are growing and changing. Another interesting neuromodulator is acetylcholine. This neuromodulator acts like a highlighter pen, marking the connections between neurons that are actively being used at the moment it is released. The release of acetylcholine tells the brain which synapses are essential for the new information or skill being learned. It marks them for storage in long-term memory. So, if your child has ever learned something one day and totally forgotten it later, well, in that case, a lack of acetylcholine is the culprit. We'll cover how to get long-term memory storage working in the second part of this video. For now, let's learn how to get into the Goldilocks zone, the optimum learning state for the brain. How do we do it? With the body. There's a type of physical exercise that can quickly get someone into the Goldilocks zone. This type of exercise requires the brain to process information quickly and efficiently, which enhances cognitive abilities. This leads to the creation of new neural pathways, increasing the brain's plasticity. Because these exercises require planning, inhibition control, and mental flexibility, they improve executive functioning. Because they require communication between different brain regions, this enhances overall brain connectivity. They also enhance fine and gross motor skills by refining the brain's ability to control muscle movements. Because the complexity of these exercises requires high levels of concentration and focus, they improve concentration and focus. And most importantly, they develop proprioception and spatial awareness. Why is that important? Because proprioception and spatial awareness grow the hippocampus, and the hippocampus is the seat of memory and learning. Incidentally, when the hippocampus grows, the amygdala shrinks. And I'm sure you remember that the amygdala is the switch that turns on the fight or flight response. So shrink that switch, and your child will be in that high-stress state far less often. It's all connected in there. So what are these magical exercises? We call them cognitively challenging, cross-lateral, confidence-cultivating calisthenics. Okay, yes, we got a little crazy with the alliteration, but let's explore what all of that means. First, cognitively challenging means physical exercises that you have to think about, like learning a new dance move. This engages the brain and the body together. Next, cross-lateral. These are exercises where one or more limbs cross the body's midline. These are effective because they facilitate better communication and coordination between the brain hemispheres. Cross-lateral exercises require both hemispheres to work together, which enhances cognitive functions such as focus, memory, and processing speed. They can also aid in developing visual tracking and visual stability, which helps with reading. And finally, confidence-cultivating calisthenics. You might be familiar with power poses, poses that help move the body into a confident state. Even better are power exercises. These ways of moving the body make you feel confident and strong. They're found in some forms of Kung Fu and dance. Some exercises will only have one of these attributes: cognitively challenging, cross-lateral, or confidence-cultivating. And that's fine. That's helpful too. But if you can get all three at once, well, then you really hit that Goldilocks zone perfectly. You hit the ideal state of learning. We recommend doing them just before studying. Where do you find these exercises? Most forms of dance are great. Yoga and gymnastics are great. Some classic playground games such as hopscotch and jump rope are excellent. Many forms of martial arts are great, especially shoshu. You can also check out the video linked in the description for a walkthrough of a few simple exercises. And of course, the Learning Success System takes full advantage of these exercises. It shows you how to integrate them into your study routine. Stop fighting those non-learning states that hold you back and make for poor learning skills. Determine which cognitively challenging, cross-lateral, confidence-cultivating calisthenic is best for you or your child. Get into that Goldilocks zone of optimal learning. It will make all the difference. Next, let's learn how to take advantage of Ultradian rhythms. And after that, I'll give you 2 simple brain booster techniques to rev up your learning strategy. You've probably heard of circadian rhythms, but have you heard of ultradian rhythms? While circadian rhythms are 24-hour cycles, ultradian rhythms are shorter, happen multiple times per day, and some affect learning. During each cycle, there's a peak period when the brain is highly alert and capable of effective learning, followed by a downward phase where attention and energy levels drop. We call these learning rhythms, or better yet, cognitive cadence. And you can use them by creating a learning framework, a framework that maximizes learning efficiency by structuring study time into small, medium, and large rhythms. This strategy leverages research on attention spans, memory consolidation, and restorative practices like yoga nidra to enhance learning and memory retention. Let's learn it. First, we have the small rhythms. These are brief, concentrated study periods, typically ranging from 10 to 20 minutes, tailored to a child's attention span. Research shows that shorter study durations are more effective for maintaining concentration and information absorption. A study published in the journal Cognition from 2012 found that brief intervals of learning interspersed with breaks led to better performance in tasks that require attention and focus. Next, we have medium rhythms. So medium rhythms consist of multiple small rhythms. A short break follows the first few small rhythms, and then after several cycles, a long break, then begin again. The number of these cycles is dependent on age and attention span, but with a maximum of somewhere between 90 and 120 minutes. We outline exactly how to do that in this video right here. This approach is supported by findings in educational psychology indicating that this distributed practice is more effective than cramming. According to a study in Psychological Science in the Public Interest from 2013, distributed practice enhances long-term memory retention. So don't cram, use learning rhythms. So next is large rhythms. Large rhythms are the overreaching cycles of learning and rest. Their role is memory consolidation. Without them, nothing sticks. The most obvious of these is sleep, but there's another one you can use if you need more than one medium rhythm in a day. Popular neuroscientist Dr. Andrew Huberman refers to this as non-sleep deep rest, or NSDR. We'll cover what that is in a moment. Both sleep and NSDR have a vital role. Memory consolidation, a process where short-term memories are transformed into long-term ones. Research in neuroscience and biobehavioral reviews from 2015 emphasizes the importance of sleep after learning from memory consolidation. During sleep, the brain replays the day's learning experiences, strengthening neural connections. Moving short-term memory into long-term memory is like a computer moving RAM memory onto the hard drive. Good sleep does that, and so does NSDR. So NSDR is commonly known as yoga nidra. It's an ancient practice that science has recently recognized for its neurological benefits. It's also perfect for transitioning between learning tasks. A study in the Journal of Clinical Psychology from 2006 showed that it significantly reduces stress and improves memory function. So, if you need to switch from math homework to reading homework, a short Yoga Nidra session will help you do that. And there's a link to free Yoga Nidra sessions in the description. Enjoy! Since you can get the entire set of instructions for setting up your cognitively challenging cross-lateral confidence-cultivating calisthenics and your cognitive cadence challenge by clicking the link in the description, let's jump to those 2 brain boosters I promised you. So now let's cover 2 really easy techniques to supercharge your new learning strategy. Unfortunately, I don't have any alliterative names for these, so if you think of any, please let me know in the comments. Or if you are sick of C's, then that's fine too. We'll move on. The first technique takes only 10 seconds, yet it has the benefit of memory consolidation similar to sleep and NSDR. It's a smaller effect, but since it takes only 10 seconds, it can be done many times throughout the study session. It can significantly accelerate learning. It does this because during the technique, the brain subconsciously replays what was just learned. But the interesting part is that it does it at 20 times the speed. And strangely, in reverse. Yes, just like Neo downloading Kung Fu, This causes our brain to play the movie of what we just learned back to itself in reverse and at 20 times speed. And that consolidates the skill into memory. We call these micro rests. But in the cognitive sciences, this is called the gap effect. So how do you do it? It's easy. At a random time during the study session, pause and do absolutely nothing for 10 seconds. Set a buzzer to go off randomly. When it goes off, freeze and do nothing for 10 seconds. Then back to study. It's weird, but the science is pretty clear that it works. So use it to boost your child's learning superpowers. You can think of it like a computer. While a computer works, sometimes its RAM memory gets a little full. So give it a few seconds to write to the hard drive. Do this with your brain and it will be ready to learn fast again. Maybe not as fast as Neo, but definitely faster than without the technique. So give it a go and unlock new potential in yourself or your child's cognitive development. Let us know how it works for you. Let's go on to our next Brain Booster Intensity challenges. This technique aligns with the concept of retrieval practice, a well-documented strategy in cognitive science. Retrieval practice involves recalling information from memory, which has been shown to enhance long-term retention more effectively than other methods like rereading or passive learning. It also aligns with the testing effect. The testing effect is a phenomenon where the act of recalling information for a test improves memory retention. Intensity challenges can be mini tests, potentially harnessing this effect to strengthen memory. The technique uses the principle of spaced repetition, a strategy where information is reviewed at increasing intervals. Spaced repetition is widely acknowledged for its positive impact on long-term memory retention. So, how do you do it? It's another simple and easy technique. Put together questions from the material being learned. Then, at random, non-study times during the day, bring out a few questions. The student is to answer as quickly as possible. Do this for 1 to 3 minutes and then stop. Over time, you can bring out the first set of questions less and less often and cycle in new questions. This combines the testing effect with the spaced repetition strategy. It reminds the brain that information needs to be put into long-term storage. If you don't tell the brain to store it long-term, it won't, because the brain is efficient that way. It won't remember anything it thinks it doesn't have to. Did you notice that parents can very easily do all of these techniques, but it would be impossible to do by teachers? We can't expect these things from teachers. It's just not possible. What teachers can do very well is teach academics. But if they don't have parents supporting them by using these methods at home, their jobs are demanding and limited in what they can do. That's where the learning success system comes into play. It helps parents use all of the new cognitive science that's now coming out to help their children become the best learners possible. Start a free trial by clicking the link in the description. Your child's teacher will be pleased, and so will you. Now, if you remember back to the cognitive cadence section of this video, you will remember that the large rhythm is built on the medium rhythm, and the medium rhythm is built on the small rhythm. And what did we base the length of the small rhythm on? Well, that was based on the student's attention span. How long can they comfortably stay focused on a single learning task? So every rhythm is longer and more learning occurs if the length of time that a student can focus can be lengthened. And it can. With the superhero focus system, you can learn how to do that in this video right here.